I actually found some information that I hadn't found before when I did the video on Sophie Zion, the transgender person that climbed up on the rooftop and fell out off the roof looking at the moon. Okay, and we done it all kind of tied in, but this is really interesting. It ties into a festival called Adonia. It's also to do with ladders mean rooftops, and rooftops mean Adonia. The woman at the window is also talking about this and talking about like prostitution. And this transgender person had done, this interview with Sophie the robot that has citizenship. Talked about prostitution or porn. Okay, so like it's interesting that all these little pieces are kind of coming together. It says here Adonia as a commentary on marriage, with the beautiful young man dying just as the bride dies in marriage. In other words, the Adonia evokes an aversion of gender roles. So we get the transgenderism into this festival. Here, the study is both on firmer ground and more convincing. Retz Ammer, this author, explores that many occurrences of Aphrodite in mourning settings, as if love of a goddess turns the table on the hero and threatens to unman them and put them in place of the powerless bride. Okay, so it's again to do with Venus and Aphrodite. Now, I don't know if you know who Adonis is. This is actually Venus's Aphrodite's lover. And I'm going to go into all this and explain how he all fits in. And he's also considered to be the Lord. Okay, so this all goes back, and it also ties into Osiris. And again, I'm trying to just kind of bring all this information bit by bit together to create the whole scene of who is the rising god that dies. Okay, and Adonis is also one of these gods that dies. So acknowledge the image of woman on a ladder may refer to Adonia or the Ippolia, the ceremony held one day after marriage celebration, when gifts were deposited upstairs in the woman's quarters. The woman on the ladder is surely a reference to one of or other of these two events, but which one? To argue that the female figures are headed to the roof, Adonia, or the upper story, Ippolia, may be misguided. Okay, so now she's just saying that ladders mean rooftops, rooftops mean Adonia. So this whole thing, it's like it blows my mind that, this is all kind of referencing to Osiris. And the whole thing about Osiris and Isis, it all goes back to this grand event that happens at the end of the great year. It's all ties into the tree of life, and who keeps their memory and who doesn't. I'm going to get all into this, and it actually all links back to money. Okay, so I'm just like, ah. So I want to explain all this and kind of a little segue again, because I'm not going to get to the end of this whole Osiris thing. I have other parts to it, but this is another segue into understanding Osiris. Adonis was the mortal lover of the goddess Aphrodite in Greek mythology. It says Aphrodite cursed his mother, Myrrha, to lust after her own father. So Myrrha was like a young woman that actually snuck into her father's bed, King Sirius. So she had sex with him in complete darkness for 9 nights. But he discovered her identity and chased her with a sword. The gods transformed her into a myrrh tree. This is all ties into Jesus, right? With the myrrh. In the form of a tree. She gave birth to Adonis. Okay, so Adonis, this beautiful Greek god, was conceived by this woman having sex with her father. Okay, so Aphrodite found the infant and gave him to be raised by Persephone, the queen of the underworld. Adonis grew into an astonishing, handsome young man, causing Aphrodite and Persephone to feud over him, and Zeus eventually decreting that Adonis would spend 1/3 of the year in the underworld with Persephone and 1/3 of the year with Aphrodite, and the final third of the year with whomever he chose. And Adonis chose to spend his final third of the year with Aphrodite. Then one day Adonis was gorged by a wild boar during this hunting trip and died in Aphrodite's arms as she wept. His blood mingled with her tears and became the anemone. Aphrodite declared the Adonia festival commemorating his tragic death, which was celebrated by women every year in midsummer. During the festival, Greek women would plant a garden as Adonis, small pots containing fast-growing plants, which they would set on the top of their houses in the hot sun. The plants would sprout, but soon would wither and die. Then the women would mourn the death of Adonis, tearing their clothes and beating their breasts in public display of grief. Okay, so this is, so they do this whole ceremony. So his meaning of his name means Lord. Okay, and it's saying here he's the archetype of dying and rising Lord. Okay, so this again is the same as Osiris. The myth of Myrrha is closely linked to that of her son Adonis, which has been easier to trace. Adonis is the Hellenicized form of the Phoenician word Adoni, meaning my lord. Yeah, so he's the Lord. So in Latin, myrrh, Latin words for the tree substance. The Latin myrrh originated from ancient Greek myrrha, but ultimately the word is Semitic origin, the root in Arab myrrh and Hebrew myrrh, all meaning bitter. Okay, so it's like a bitter plant. So yeah, so Aphrodite, cries over Adonis, and this is where we get the Alice in Wonderland thing, where the roses have been previously white and they're stained with the red of her blood, or his blood. And the other versions, the anemone flower grew on the spot where Adonis died. The red rose where Aphrodite's tears fell. Over the course of the festival, Athenian women took to the rooftops of their houses. They danced and sang. The ritual mourned the death of Adonis. Yeah, so this is where they planted, and yeah, it was like they conducted a mock funeral procession before ritually burying the images and the remains of the gardens at the sea or in springs. So the rites observed during the festival are not otherwise parallel to the ancient Greek religion. Like Adonis himself, they probably originated in the Near East. And this is interesting because it's tying into Sirius again. So in Egypt and Syria in the Roman period, the Adonia coincided with the rising of the star Sirius in late July. Okay, so now we're getting Sirius, and you got to remember that when Trump was inaugurated, when he was in his beast car, he stopped for a minute in the procession, and they waited for the Sirius star to come up on the helical rising before the car started to move again. Okay, it's a whole ritual to Sirius, and this is to do with Osiris, or any dying lord that rises again. Okay, so you can say Jesus, or it's the same story because it represents this event, this event which happens on the planet, and it all ties into the Tree of Life. And I do believe it's how to bring the souls. This is what I've read, is that the rising God brings the souls that are ready to go into the other world with him. Okay, this is the whole thing about this mythology, is that he brings the immortal souls with him. Okay, so if you want to think of immortality as evil, it's really more of just awakening of your consciousness. You're already in a way immortal because we never really die. Our bodies go, but we just, it's like a car. You get from going from one car to another. But the point is, you keep your memory, and this is what makes you immortal. And it actually all ties into money. I'm going to explain that. So here, there's a river, the Adonis River, um, now known as the Abraham River in Lebanon. So there they're using Christianity, reference to, again, to Adonis. Now, Psyche had a lover who was Cupid, and this is Aphrodite's son. Okay, so she had a son, and I'm not sure, I think Adonis might be the father. I'm not 100% sure about that, so don't quote me on that one. But this is Aphrodite's son, Cupid. It all ties into, we see this at Valentine's Day, little Cupid, but there's a whole story with him and Psyche. This all ties in, again, to Adonis, his stepmother, who raised him. And that would be Persephone. The story of Cupid and Psyche appears in the Greek art as early as the 4th century BC, but the most extended literal source of the late is the Latin novel Metamorphosis, also known as the Golden Ass. That's lovely. It concerns the overcoming of obstacles to the love between Psyche, the soul, so she represents the soul, and the breath of life and Cupid, and their ultimate union in marriage. The fame of Psyche's beauty threatens to eclipse that of Venus herself, or Aphrodite. And the love goddess sends Cupid to work her vengeance. So she sends her son to, go after Psyche because she's so beautiful and she doesn't like it. Okay, he visits her at night, warning her not to try to look at him. But Psyche's envious sisters convince her that her lover must be a hideous monster, and she finally introduces a lamp in the chamber to see him. So he goes there, he falls in love with her. Okay, so he goes there to, do kind of, do something to her, but he ends up falling in love with her. And then she's startled by his beauty, and she drips hot oil from the lamp and awakens him, and then he abandons her because he's freaked out because she saw him. Okay, so he's like immortal. He comes into the underworld and, has a relationship with her, and she's just mortal, right? He abandons her, so she goes around looking for him, trying to find him, but she wanders the earth trying to find him, and then Venus says, well, if you want to find him, then you have to do this favor for me. And the Venus, Aphrodite, she sends Psyche on a quest, and she has to go to Persephone to get her beauty from her in a little box, okay? And then she has to bring the box back to the upper world, or back to Aphrodite. So she has to, go through the veil, get this box with the beauty in it, and then take it to Venus and cross over into the other realm. And then what else does it says here? Yeah, Cupid finds her in a state. Oh, yeah, because then she looks at the box. She's not supposed to, but she looks inside the box, and she falls asleep. So Cupid finds her in this state and revives her by returning her into immortality, so the couple can be wed as equals. So yeah, so he finds her asleep. It's almost like the Sleeping Beauty story, and then he revives her, and then they go become immortal together, and they get married. That's the whole story of Cupid and Psyche. So here it's saying that she goes to take this box, and this is the pixis, and obtained in a dose of beauty for Proserpina. Now, Proserpina is the same as Persephone, okay, queen of the underworld. They just changed the name. Venus claims her own beauty has faded through tending her ailing son, Cupid, because he was sick because of this event, where he had to take off and he got wounded or something. There's another story where she puts a sword into him. When he gets startled and he sees that she's looking at him. And she needs this remedy in order to attend the theater of the gods. So this is the pixis on top of the Carina ship, and there's Neos, the star that the azimuthal grid aligned to when they do the swearing in for the president. It's the oath star. And this whole area in the sky, I'm going to do another video on this. This is interesting. I just found out there's a big X in here that has Sirius in the center of it. And this goes back to Egyptian mythology. And I will do a video on that. So for order for Psyche to get back to the other realm of immortality, she has to cross the river Styx. And Charon is the guy, he's the ferryman that puts a token in her mouth so she can cross the river and become immortal. Okay, so I was told that Chiron, the moon of Pluto, was the Chiron, the Centaurus, right? But it's two different things. The moon of Pluto is Charon, and that's this guy, the ferryman. He's like a psychopomp, which they're called, are these beings that help souls go from one realm to the other. Basically, jump the Mobius jump, right? To go from through the veil. So yeah, so he's not Chiron the Centaurus that taught Asclepius, and Asclepius being Ophiuchus. Okay, it's two different characters. There's also a Charon, and here we have the psychopompo of the underworld, not to be confused with the god of the underworld, known to the Etruscans as Eta. Okay, so he's often portrayed with Vanth, a winged figure also associated with the underworld. We're in the underworld. Okay, so it's like we're mortal. The immortal world is the upper world, or the world of the gods, right? So here's the psychopomps, the guide of the souls. They're creatures, spirits, angels, or deities in many religions who are responsible is the escort newly deceased souls from the earth to the afterlife. Their role is not to judge the deceased, but simply to guide them, appearing frequently on funeral art. Psychopomps have been depicted as in different times as different cultures. Like entities as horses, deer, dogs, whippoorwills, ravens, crows, vultures, owls, sparrows, and cockatoos. Or sorry, cuckoos. Let's see what else here. Anubis. Okay, so that's Anubis. This would be Thoth again. Would be the wolf. And there it's saying again with Charon. And the god Hermes, and the Roman god Mercury. Okay, and the Norse, the Valkyries. Okay, so Mercury helps you get across. He's not part, like he's like the passenger, helps you get through. Okay, so he helps awaken you. He helps you in a way to help you see the world as an illusion so you can get across through the veil. Okay, so I've always said Trump is like Mercury, but he's also like Osiris. He's kind of like taking on many different roles, but this is all part of it, right? So it's kind of seeing how everything is layered on top of each other. There's no like right or wrong. It's just all layers of ancient mythology. So this Danaki is a coin that has to do with the Charon opal. Okay, so the gold is also referred to Danaki as presumably Charon's opal. So it's this little token that Psyche had to put in her mouth to be able to cross the river Styx. And it's saying here, yeah, it's placed or in the dead person's mouth, because when you're in this realm, you're dead. We're all basically all dead, okay, because we're not awakened souls. And you pay the ferryman who conveys souls across the river that divides the world from the living and from the dead. So when you retain all your memory and you become immortal, then you're in the living state again. Right now, we're all dead because we're just slaves and we don't even know it. So Charon's opal is sometimes significantly called the Nalem. It's the boat fare. Okay, the opal for the dead. So, yeah, there you go. So that's the coin, the money. It's the token pass. So it's a passport. Oh, there we go. Passport for the dead. Oh, COVID certificate of vaccination ID. So-called the Orphic gold tablets, and perhaps the best known example. So let's see here. It's a leaf. It's a gold-plated, yeah, the Charon's opal again. The coin that pays the ferryman of the dead for passage. Particular coin depicted the head of the Gorgon and placed in the tomb was a terracotta figurine of the Maenad, one of the esoteric women in the reunion of the Dionysus. Okay, so Dionysus is also a little bit like Osiris. Okay, he helps people become immortal. Okay, so then it's saying here the deceased is supposed to stand before Persephone, queen of the dead, and assert, "I have been released by Bacchius." Now, Bacchius is Dionysus. This is another word that he used to confuse you, but that's his name as well. So the obelisk is using the same word of the opal. Okay, it's all to do with money. So now we know that the obelisk represents the tree of life, but it's almost like that's the money. It's like the little white wafer they put in your mouth in Catholic church. You know, it's the phosphorus. It's all going back to this white manna. So this I found interesting, and they take these sticks, and this is how they would originally, measure money. 6 rods shaped obololi. So this is all displayed as the form of money. This is how they measured the money in this handful of sticks. So when you see a handful of sticks, or even, I guess you could say, sticks of like wood sticks, you would still all represent the same thing. It's like you pay, right? It's like how you pay. Now, I've spoken about Mnemosyne. It's like finding Nemo. It's your mnemotic memory. Now, she has the lantern. She also has the pansy there. Pansy represents memory as well. Now, although the meandering of the fragile text poses difficulties, the inscriptions appear to speak the unity of life and death and rebirth, possibly in the divine form. The deceased is supposed to stand before Persephone, queen of the dead. Yeah, so this is I already read this. But this is all to do with, they've put Mnemosyne all in here as well. So she's all tying into this kind of pool of memory. Okay, so you will find on the right of the Hades halls in spring, and by it stands a ghostly cypress tree where the dead souls descending wash away their lives. Do not even draw nigh the spring. Further on you will find chill water flowing from the pool of memory. Over this stands guardians. They will ask you with a keen mind, what is your quest in the gloom of the deadly Hades? They will ask you for what reason you have come. Tell them that the whole truth straight out. Say, I am the son of earth, the starry heavens, but of heaven is my birth, and you know yourselves. I am parched with thirst and perishing. Give me quickly the chill water flowing from the pool of memory. Okay, so this is what happens when you pass away. You want to ask for your memory back. You don't want to and you want to tell them what your quest was in this realm. So this is all very interesting, that this little tablet is all tying into Mnemosyne. I had no idea about this, right? So I was like, I knew it was like the water was memory, but I didn't know it tied to this tablet or this coin. So Zeus, the former of the mortal shepherd, and Mnemosyne slept together for 9 consecutive nights, thus conceiving the 9 muses. Mnemosyne also presided over the pool in Hades, counterpart to the river Lethe, according to the series of the 4th century BC Greek funerary inscriptions in the dialectic hexameter. Dead souls drank from Lethe so that they would not remember their past lives when reincarnated. In Orphism, the initiate were taught to instead drink from Mnemosyne, the river of memory, which would stop the transmigration of the soul. Okay, so stop meaning you wouldn't just keep being put into another vessel and losing your memory, because every time you die, you get put into another vessel, you lose your memory. But if you manage to be able to cross the river Styx with this ferryman, with this token, you are able to retain memory, and then you don't need to keep being transferred. Okay, so it says here, after his ascent from the oracle of the Tropophenius, the inquirer is again taken in the hand of the priest, which sets him upon the chair called the chair of Mnemosyne. So there's a chair of Mnemosyne, not just a pool, that stands not far from the shrine, and they ask of him, when seated here, all he has seen and learned. So what did you see and learn when you were here in this lifetime? After gaining this information, they then entrust him to his relatives. Then you're allowed to go see your family members. These lift him, paralyzed with terror and unconscious, both of himself and of his surroundings, and carry him into a building where he is lodged before the Teka, the fortune, and the Demian Agathon, good spirit. Afterwards, however, he will recover from his sleep. Okay, and then this is all to do with this temple, the Mnemosyne temple. So it says here, they recover all his faculties and power to launch will return to him. And to laugh will return to him. Sorry, launch. Couldn't read it. So then this is what happens. So they have this temple, this Mnemosyne temple, and this is all also referring to this she helps you go into a lucid dream, and then you dream about Mnemosyne, and she heals you and brings back your memories. This was an ancient temple called Asclepian temple. Now, you got to remember, Asclepius is Ophiuchus, the 13th zodiac. Okay? So it says here, the signatures to Asclepian medicine was the holistic approach to patient care. It emphasized therapy through the natural environment, hence the carefully chosen location, as well as the care of the patient's psychological and emotional states. By attending to these things, the patient innate healing mechanisms were activated, which promote recovery. There were 2 steps in order for the patient to be considered to be treated in the Asclepion. The first of which was in the Karhathis, or purification stage. I probably didn't say that right. This was when a patient undergoes a series of baths and other methods of purging, such as a clean diet over a series of several days of purging their emotions through art. The patient would then make an offering such as money or a prayer to the temple, therefore to Asclepius. The priests of the temple then gave the patient a prayer in which it would ease the patient's mind and create a more positive outlook for them. Afterwards comes incubation of dream therapy, and the patients would sleep in the Abaton, which was a dormitory located in the Asclepion. Here they would be lulled into a hypnotic state, likely induced by hallucinogenics, and began their dream journey. As they slept, they were visited by Asclepius and his daughters, Hydria and Panasis. Their dream visitations were prognosis in nature, revealing the projected course of the disease and ultimate patient outcome. During this time, patients would also discover what it was they needed to do once they woke in order to treat their disease. Upon awakening, the patient would recount the dream to the temple priest, who would then prescribe a treatment based on the interpretation. Other dreams were less direct and more symbolic. The physician priests of the Asclepians were also master dream interpreters who would divine the treatment to be followed by the patient accounts of his dream. The god Asclepius had certain totem animals in which he liked to visit the serpents as they slept. These were the dog, the rooster, and of course the snake. Now, I also read that they were dreaming of Mnemosyne. But this whole ritual is really a shamanic ritual, right? So the shamanic healers would go, actually, they would do the dream, take the drugs. They would then, I've discussed this before, they would urinate, and then their whole tribe would drink the hallucinogenic drugs through the urine, and then they would come up with a way of how to heal the people. So this is all really the same ceremony. So I think this is really a huge part of our culture on this planet, which obviously has been hidden. So this all ties into Moneta. The Roman mythology, Moneta, was the title given to two separate goddesses, the goddess of memory, Mnemosyne, and the goddess Juno. Now, we know Juno all ties into the Capitoline Hill, right? She's with Minerva, Juno, and Jupiter. So Juno is all tying into money. So this is really interesting. The latter name is a source of numerous words in English and Romance languages, including the word money and mint. So Moneta, given to Juno, more likely derives from the Greek word moneres and means alone or unique. They're just saying here, it's all what I said before, but then moneta retained the meaning of money and die well into the Middle Ages and appeared often on minted coins. So the word money means die. And I think it's like, in a way, it's like, because it's the dead token that gets you out of here. But it's also like, we don't understand what it means, right? We don't understand that it means to retain our memory. So we're just always chasing this coin. It means to be dead, really, like, because you're part of the underworld. It's crazy. It's all tied in. And they're obviously worshiping it in the United States because this was a Confederate $50 bill, and they had Moneta on the $50 bill. So they definitely know the symbolism, and they're using it. Yes, so here we have Mnemosyne with a lot of the present day, how they're using her. A city of the end of time, sailor moon, ties to Cronus, and depicted as the fiery daughter of Cronus. So she's the daughter of Saturn. In Xanadu, Mnemosyne is the unnamed mother of the 9 muses. Yeah, well, we know that she is. I know Bob Dylan did a song also about her. That was interesting. I went and listened to that song, Mother of Muses. Go listen to it. It's actually really cool. He's got some interesting lyrics in it. And then it ties to the Tree of Life. So it's all the same symbolism going around and around. We don't even know what we're looking at, but it's all very interesting. So this is just a little segue again, because I had done a nice podcast with John from All for Synchronicity, and he really nicely uploaded it onto YouTube, so it's a little easier for everybody to get to listen to. And I just wanted to tell you guys about that, and this is why I put this video together, to just about that little talk I had with John. And I was discussing a little bit about the Venus transit and how that all ties in to the founding of the United States. In case you haven't remembered that from an ancient video I did a long time ago, I explained all that. So it was a nice little chat. So go check that out. I'll drop the link. And I'm definitely going to get to the end of all this with Osiris and Trump, and how it all ties into later this fall. And I should have that out at the beginning of this week coming up. So stand by and just go listen to my little podcast, because there's probably little stuff in there that you haven't heard for a while, or haven't heard before if you're new to the channel. So yeah, visit my website, Time Will Tell, Time with a Y, astrology, and I'll drop my email link below. And yeah, and bliss to you guys. And I know it's getting crazy out there, the vaccine being pushed, but we all know what that means, and we have to just stand our ground and stay true to having intact DNA. Okay, so all ties into the tribe of Dan. So we want to be those people that can make it to the next level of this video game crazy matrix. Take care. Bliss to you all.